Hello, this is Kyra Magna, and this is Magic Square MS-B54 Tornado, which is their take on G1 Vortex. This is the fourth Combaticon of the set. We're going to take a look at him, but first, we're going to take a look at the box. It is pretty standard design-wise as the other Combaticons, with a gorgeous piece of artwork, a gradient and grid background, and the same sort of thing on the side, coming around to the back, some more art, some stats, that sort of thing. This box is notably much larger than the other boxes in the line compared to such as Brawl here, or even Onslaught's box. It is actually slightly bigger, which is quite surprising, but it's probably due to the accessories. Speaking of, you get a instruction manual, which I found quite helpful, but please note that this instruction manual does not include instructions for transforming to arm mode. And you get a collector's card, which has been very lightly chewed by my cat. It's just featuring the same artwork from the box and some stats on the back. I don't really care about these things. And as for other accessories, there are a few to talk about. You of course get Vortex's cartoon gun, which is an unpainted piece of plastic, but the color and sculpt is pretty much perfection to match the screen. And he will hold it using a port in his hand quite easily, like so. To use this in alt mode, you first detach the two pieces from each other. The first one goes into the front here to actually complete the nose. There's a little tab on the side of it which will tab into the front, like so. The back piece is a little different. You actually have to sort of pry your way into the inside of the helicopter. We're just gonna kind of disassemble everything here. And you will see that there is a tab in here and a tab on the side of this gun piece. And you can sort of just plug that in for some storage there. And then you kind of just reclose everything around it. You get two of these L and R arm blasters, which have a little hinge here, like so, which will be used for different configurations. The gray is painted, as is, I believe, the black. This attaches to the arm through this port here and the tab on the end here. Once you have that tapped in, you come around to the side over here and fold this hinge over and into the port there. And it's the exact same for the other side as well. And to plug this in, it's quite simple. There's a port on the end and a port on the side of the tail of the helicopter here, and it's the exact same for the left and the right. You also get the combined mode hand, which is actually quite a few pieces. You of course get the base connection joint, which has a couple paint apps on it that just match Vortex. We'll fill it out in arm mode. You get the wrist pinned joint here, which will move a little bit out, and a hair in as well, which is fantastic as we haven't seen this on a Magic Square combiner before. You also get an extremely tight swivel here, but I did loosen mine up slightly as it is on a screw, but it's still quite tight and I'm not comfortable loosening it sort of any further. The thumb is on a ball joint, which will move pretty much however you need it to, and then there is another pin for the finger to go all the way in pretty much both directions, which is pretty much what you need for a thumb. Each finger is the exact same, where they're on a ball joint at the base of the hand, or palm rather, and will wiggle about that far out at maximum, and in as well. And then there is another pinned joint here, which will fold the finger up, past 90 degrees. That's pretty decent. And so, I mean, the hand is quite nice. I appreciate that from Devastator, of course, they do not use the same, palm mold, which they did for Devi, which made for a very weirdly shapen squarish bit here. So they've instead actually used left and right pieces, and of course included some extra articulation. So very nice hand overall. To attach the hand, you just line up the ports that are these two, and there's two little holes in the front of the arm. And you can just kind of maneuver it in and then lock in the sides And that's pretty much it. And of course you get the combiner body piece, which is a bunch of pieces of gray plastic, pretty much. There's a bunch of ports on the front. There's a bunch of ports in the back. This sort of moves like so up, and there's a little, oh no, that's just stuck on there. This will move up. There is a neck here on Bruticus himself, or his head rather, which of course includes all the way around like so. You get the 360, lots of up, and a little bit of down as well, which is nice because Devi didn't have that, which is very unfortunate for any combiner. On top of that, of course, coming out to the arms here, or where the arms will be, I suppose, at the shoulder, there is another hinge like so. There's a little joint that's a little hard to move here, which is a sort of like swivel where the arm attaches. It's kind of tight to hold the arm on, but you know, it can be used. And I believe that this will untap itself like this. I'm not exactly sure what this is for. I suppose some sort of backwards butterfly joint for the combined mode. We're going to take a closer look at all this in the Bruticus video, which will be coming up very soon, as this is the second to last member. To attach this piece, you first get your onslaught, and you make sure that the shoulder pieces here are lifted out like so. Lift the head hinge up as well. Then there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, bunch of connection ports, sort of all sprinkled in, and then you kind of just push it together like so. And then there's a port on the side, port here, same for the other side. And come on. The connection is quite strong and tight as well, I'll note. And so there's a little bit of force required, but nothing extraneous. There you go. And then for the top, there's 2 tabs on each side and some slots for them to slot into. And you're pretty much done. From here, you can take your chest plate piece that came with Onslaught, and it will just tab into the front like so. Looks pretty spiffy if you ask me. Pretty much it for the accessories. You don't really get anything past the mandatory guns and of course the combiner components. I would have loved to see some alternate hands on this guy. And here is the figure himself, which, I mean, at a glance looks very cartoon. So sort of coming in from his head down here, you'll see that he's got a red painted visor on an otherwise unpainted gray headpiece, I suppose. And there's actually some red at the back here, which sort of mimics the look of light piping, but is accurate to the cartoon, which is nice. Coming down, of course, you get some accents painted on the chest here. The arms are pretty much unpainted, but you do get these nice little pieces here, which are, I'm not sure what they quite are, to be honest, some sort of thruster or something for the alt mode, but they have a little bit of black paint on them. And looking at the side of the body, you actually get a bunch of windows, which look fantastic with that nice glossy black paint like you would come to expect from this set. On the thighs, they're unpainted pieces of plastic, color matched quite well to the paint. And then on the legs, they're kind of an interesting one. On the G1 cartoon model, there's a little more curvature to the legs, but they were often drawn straight like this, so I don't find it super egregious. There's, of course, some black paint on the front and the black paint on his feet as well. Looking at the side, they have some details which are kind of not on the cartoon model for the windows and stuff, but they do have the little wheels on the back. It's kind of hard to hide all the kibble away, and I think that is a very nice place to put that sort of thing. Coming to the back of the leg, they're actually colored incorrectly. This sort of color that comes from the same as the thighs is actually for the combined mode. So I'm not super mad they're hiding it on the back and it doesn't look messy, so I don't draw a ton of issue, but it is a lack of accuracy there and sort of a compromise because he is a combiner component. There's also a little divot in the back of his legs that was on the cartoon model, which, I mean, they didn't include the hollowness really. And of course you have his propeller at the back, which will spin quite freely. I do enjoy that quite a bit. So that's kind of it for the sculpt. I find it pretty great. They kind of have that similar thing going on where they end up beefing up the proportions of a G1 model. I actually think it has some strange properties on this character specifically due to how the chest is shaped. They kind of buff it out a bit, but due to the sort of outward and then inward curvature here, it makes him look a little wide versus more heroic. But it's really not. It's kind of a subtle nitpick. But I think it absolutely works. If you look at it something like versus the MMC's chest, it's a little slimmer, and I quite like the look of that. But this is absolutely not wrong. As for articulation, there's actually a lot to talk about. we're going to take a look at the head first. So this is the worst spot of articulation on the figure, unfortunately. You'll notice the head is just on a swivel that will go around 360, but it's not on a ball joint, so you cannot get any forward or backward movement. I assume this is another combined mode compromise because now it easily comes off, which you'll see later when we get to arm mode. But that's absolutely awful. I think they should have found some way to get around that. I cannot believe the lack of expression you get when you don't have a ball joint for the head on this sort of a figure. Otherwise, we're coming down to the shoulders here. They're on ball joints and will get you about up to there and sort of, 360 around. And then at the elbow, we have a double jointed elbow, which will, get you as far as you need to. You can actually get that a little further if you end up tabbing it into the arm, but I'm not going to do that. Then you have a bicep swivel as well, which will pretty much get you all the way around as well, which is great. And then at the hand here as well, there is a swivel, which will get you 360 around at the wrist. So pretty great for the arms over there. As you just saw, we have a waist swivel that goes 360. That's fantastic. And we have an ab crunch, which will get you about this far. Optimus Legends, who posts the promotional videos for these figures, noted that this figure did not have an ab crunch. He clearly just didn't notice it. So here it is, and it gets you just about 90 degrees there. Now at the hips here, you get the interesting hip skirt design, my personal favorite, where the hip skirt retracts into the body, which will get you about past 90-degree kick forward, which looks absolutely amazing. You do get out to the side as well, past 90 degrees. There notably isn't really a hip skirt here, which looks a little ugly, but it's not the end of the world. You also get a little bit of back movement, which is nice because Swindle and Brawl didn't really get any at all, but there's a little bit there, which is pretty much about as much as you need. Coming down to the knee, of course, it is on a double joint, and so that will get you about that far, which I think is enough. Pretty much the bare minimum enough for a flying character, as you might want to put them in a flying pose and have them kicking up. And then coming down to the foot here, you get an ankle pivot that gets you sort of all the way 90 degree. Looks great. And then you actually do get some toe articulation as well. So you can disconnect this piece from this piece here, like so. And then that unclips the toe and it will actually move up under 90 degrees, but absolutely more than enough toe tilt forward. And then you also get, by shifting out a bunch of the mechanisms just a little bit, you can sort of get a toe tilt down as well. It kind of makes the messy inside of the leg a little messier, but I think it's absolutely fantastic. I love to see toe articulation on figures like this. So yeah, I mean, another knockout in articulation, Magic Square's specialty, if you ask me. And real quick, because I missed it, there is actually another joint in here, which is the teapot motion. This is used for the arm joint for combined mode, but if you use it just subtly enough, you can actually get some pretty interesting poses out of it, and it should be noted. For some size comparisons, here he is with Magic Square's Optimus Prime 2.0, so coming in a little shorter there. Here he is, of course, with Magic Square's Onslaught, so notably shorter, as Onslaught is a little out of scale overall. Here he is with New Age's Bone Crusher. Here is Magic Square's Mirage, so much taller than a Carbot. Here is New Age's Grimlock, coming in much shorter, as he should be. And here he is with New Age's Bumblebee 2.0, so much taller than the little guy. And on to transformation, and I mean, it's a bit of a behemoth, so you kind of just destroy the entire body, flip out a million panels, and then a million panels come out of that. It's the intricacy of the individual little panels is kind of what gets to me on this transformation. With something like Swindle, he has a panel explosion, but at least all the panels are quite large and easy to keep track of. This one has a bunch of teensy little panels filling in these tiny gaps, and if you don't move them out of the way, you get no clearance to move everything in the correct way. It's kind of a mess. The arms kind of fold up pretty simple, though, at least. And you can also put the gun in here, which I think I showed off earlier, but I don't actually do it in this bit. You can just see I'm just kind of fiddling with every piece. So I try and line up 50 different flaps, and I mean, I'm also doing it off memory, which isn't probably the smartest idea. The legs are kind of the same thing. You kind of rotate the giant side panels out, and then once you've done that, you've got a million different little sliding panels in the inner leg area, and then you have like these teeny little gap fillers they have pop out for both modes. You can kind of position everything to line up, and then you kind of compress everything back onto the thigh, which also brings its own sort of struggle trying to make sure everything lines up to squish it back there when you have a couple angles that don't lock in. So you kind of have to just guess them a little bit there, and yeah, you get it in the end. And then of course have to do the same thing on the other side. I mean, it could definitely be worse. I've experienced worse, but I think this is probably the worst transformation of the set so far, and that's just the nature of helicopter bots, unfortunately. And then I take a little while struggling to get all the panels to sort of click in right at the end. But you can do it eventually with a little bit of elegance, I think. And you have to pop all the gun bits in on top of that. Just a little bit of parts forming, but we don't care about parts forming in this house. The rotor bits are also a little tight, but you can get them out pretty easy, especially if you use a tool. That's kind of it for the transformation. Let's take a look at him. And here we have the alt mode. I mean, and it's quite an impressive task to make an helicopter work out of a blocky robot like Vortex. So that's certainly something to be commended off the bat. But as you can see, we have the black glossy windows sort of adorning pretty much everywhere on this guy. There's some more accent paint coming around to the front here for a nice stripe. I think that looks fantastic. The helicopter blades actually droop slightly, which is accurate to a real-world helicopter, and will spin 360 freely. Love, love, love it. I'm sure my cat will love spinning it too. As you can see, the side accessory just fell off. That can sort of be bumped off because it's just held in by a simple tab. But that's sort of, you know, whatever. Coming around to the side, there's a little bit of detail on here, and there's a bunch of flaps. The other side of the gun thing came off. That hasn't really happened as much, but it's whenever you turn the camera on, I suppose. There is another tail rotor here, which is actually quite tight, so it doesn't spin freely, but it does spin. Extremely thin sort of tail flaps on the back here as well, wings, I suppose. And then these little wheels here do spin as well. The third wheel is unpainted for reasons unknown to anyone. I assume maybe it has some paint chipping when you fold it back, but I might be painting that black myself to match the other two since it looks a little bit out of place. And now we're going to talk about sort of the elephant in the room here, which is, of course, the fact that there are a ton of tab holes and hinges just coating this guy compared to the other Combaticons. I mean, there's tab holes in every single propeller piece here, or rotor piece here. There's tab holes all along the side, tabs here. There's even a little bit of gappiness in the top over here. And I mean, just some general, you can kind of peek through these top bits over here as well. It's a little bit of a mess. It's very messy. And there's even some tabs on the front here, which I think the other Combaticons managed to more successfully hide the tabs and the gaps. And I understand that helicopters are extremely hard, especially when you have to triple change into an arm. That's to be noted. Otherwise, the form is a little boxy. I would have preferred a little more round like the cartoon. But again, boxy robot to round helicopter is quite a task. I mean, and so they've kind of gotten what they've gotten. I think that it looks quite good if you sort of have it, you know, in some sort of flying angles. The bottom's actually quite clean as well. All things considered, there's no visible head syndrome or hands or nothing. You kind of get the sort of hip assembly over here, but otherwise it's quite a clean piece and everything does tab together quite nicely. I think it's quite a successful helicopter mode and absolutely does the job as the cartoon depiction of the helicopter. For some size comparisons, here he is with Magic Square's Swindle. So, you know, quite a bit bigger overall. Here he is with Magic Square's Brawl. Once again, bit bigger overall, just due to the length of the tail and whatnot. Here he is with New Age's Optimus Prime. So again, quite big for an alt mode. And here he is with Magic Square's Optimus Prime 2.0. So, you know, Optimus Prime 2.0 is a bit bigger than New Age's. And to transform this guy to arm mode, it's also a little bit of an ordeal, but not so much once you're already in the helicopter mode. Gotta pull the guns off and then start opening him up. The legs essentially get completely reconfigured sort of inside out to make sure that the correct panels are showing for the cartoon accurate forearm look. And so that's kind of its own, you know, ordeal in itself. But, yeah. And then they kind of just recompress back in. Once you've done the initial robot to helicopter transformation, it's going to be less daunting. But otherwise, I mean, it's still the same mess of lining up these little sliding panels and things. Really not a fan of the transformation, considering how much I've been a fan of the transformations of all the other Combaticons, even though that they're quite complex. They're a little more intuitive and there weren't random panels getting in the way. It's not egregious. Like I said, I've definitely done worse in my time, but it's not Magic Square's most elegant and fine work, which I think is chalked up mostly to Triple Changer and, of course, Helicopter Bot. To attach the Vortex arm to the Onslaught body piece, you take this little tab here, and there's a slot over here, and you can kind of just, I think you do have to untab this a little bit, and then it will just slot in like so, and then you close it back up. And here you have the combined mode so far. So, I mean, we're not going to go over everything because, again, we're going to take a look at this in the review for the combined mode. But just real quick, there's a swivel at the bicep, and there's an elbow joint that is not comprised of the leg joints. And, you know, the hand articulation we already went over. So, I mean, this looks fantastic. I can't wait to finish this. This is the toy style configuration for the top of the helicopter piece. You can actually turn this into a cartoon style one, which is of course how I'll be displaying mine. You haven't figured out my preferences already. And to do this, you kind of just split these bits in half. And then you have a bunch of folding to do. It's a little messy. Let me just see if I can fold this over here. I think this goes back. And the same for the other side. And there are kind of tabs holding everything in place, which is nice. I think this moves in. It just doesn't tab super nicely for that sort of one tab specifically. And then these pieces actually tab into the backpack here. Oops. Or I suppose it's half backpack, half Vortex's arms, but it's the top of the helicopter now. Anyhow, and that's pretty much the Toon configuration down. You can maneuver the fins whichever direction that you sort of wish. I'm probably going to maneuver mine in. Doesn't really matter. I guess I'm maneuvering them out because this one is static out at the back. Not much difference either way. Unfortunately, it's both kind of unsightly fins on there. But that looks much better from the side and 3/4 angles when it comes to cartoon accuracy. And here is why I believe they did not use a ball joint for the head. As you can see, the head is actually quite visible here. And if you wanted to fold these down, you can even see his face sticking out, which is, I mean, kind of egregious if you ask me. And so what you're going to want to do there is just pull it off the peg that it stands on, like so. And yeah, I mean, there's his head. And I love this. This cartoon accurate arm looks absolutely fantastic. I'm so glad they included both options, just like with Swindle. So yeah, I mean, that looks great. We're going to take a look at this later with all the figures released. As for my final thoughts, there's actually a lot to talk about. Number one, the articulation in the head is pretty unacceptable in this day and age. I think they should have engineered a way around that. I also think that the color is a little light. I didn't quite talk about this in the video, but yeah, I mean, it's overall light, similar to Onslaught, which it should have been a little darker to match the cartoon. The accessories was an interesting bunch. So first of all, they're locking you into different decos by including the chest piece that's gray. The other one is going to be purple with the other version. So that's a little unfortunate. And on top of that, we didn't get any alternate hands or anything like that. And then there's some sacrifice for the combined mode. In the alt mode, having tabs everywhere, the combined mode not being one-to-one cartoon thanks to a couple flaps, etc. And in the back of the legs as well is the wrong color because of the combined mode part, which is kind of the most sacrifice we've seen on any of these bots so far. As for some of the positives though, some of the articulation in the feet is fantastic, where you get the full tilt and toe tilt forward and backwards if you like. And then on top of that, you also get a teapot, which is very fun. So that's definitely worth talking about. And For helicopter bots in general, it's an extremely hard shape to make out of a boxy G1 robot, so I will commend what they did manage to pull off for essentially a triple changer with the arm mode as well. This bot is essentially the weakest link in an extremely strong set of figures, which is not the worst fate to have. I think that he might be the weakest, but I still think that he's fairly good, and so if you like Vortex, I think this figure is probably going to be worth picking up, or if you are in on this set. I have been Kyra Magna. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See ya!